What if everything you've been told about being too much was actually proof of something extraordinary? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why Carl Jung believed the very traits society criticizes might be pointing you toward your deepest purpose. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what happens when who you truly are doesn't fit the mold? What if your intensity, your sensitivity, your refusal to accept shallow answers aren't flaws to fix, but signs of a rare and powerful psychological design? If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own story, if people have called you too deep, too complicated, or too intense, that isn't random. According to Jung's groundbreaking insights on personality, certain individuals develop what he called differentiated consciousness, a way of experiencing reality that most never even approach. And here's what's fascinating. Jung discovered that these rare individuals often spend years believing something is wrong with them, when in truth they're operating at a higher psychological bandwidth than the average person. But there's a catch, one I'll reveal soon. Today we're diving into 8 unmistakable signs that you may possess this rare type of consciousness. If these resonate, they won't just reshape how you view your past, they might redirect your entire future. Sign 1. You feel emotions at a depth others can't comprehend. One of the clearest indicators of Jung's rare personality type is profound emotional depth. Jung found something remarkable about emotional intensity. Some individuals don't just feel emotions, they experience what he called affect, toned complexes, emotional patterns that move through the psyche like powerful currents. In simple terms, you don't just feel, you're moved in waves that can shake your inner world. This isn't instability, it's depth. Jung understood that people who feel intensely aren't overreacting, they're tapping into layers of human experience that most have learned to suppress. So why does society label depth as too much? Because your presence disrupts the emotional numbness people rely on to survive. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Your emotional intensity isn't a burden, it's a radar. You sense tension before anyone speaks. You notice when someone's smile doesn't match their eyes. You feel the undercurrent of every interaction because your psyche isn't built for shallow waters. But here's the twist. Jung noticed that emotionally deep people often sabotage their own gift. The world tells you to tone it down, be reasonable, stop making everything matter. But suppressing your truth doesn't make you normal, it makes you divided. Jung called this psychological splitting, when one part of you knows the truth while another tries to fit into a world that doesn't understand you. That's why pretending to be fine leaves you exhausted and disconnected. You're living against your nature. But here's the good news. Jung discovered a path to turn emotional intensity into your greatest strength. I'll share that when we get to sign number 6. Sign 2. You question everything with relentless curiosity. Another unmistakable sign is your refusal to accept anything at face value. You need to know why. Jung observed that most people live what he called unconscious lives, repeating scripts they never wrote. But you're different. You dig deeper, you analyze, you investigate the why behind the what. Jung would describe you as someone with a highly differentiated thinking function, someone who seeks truth beneath appearances. Questioning everything doesn't make you difficult, it makes you honest. But there's a cost. The deeper you question, the more clearly you see, and the more isolated you can feel. Your honesty disrupts the illusions others depend on. When you ask, "Why do we keep doing this?" or why are we pretending this is okay? You threaten comfort zones. That's why people may call you negative or cynical, when in fact you're courageously awake. Jung even had a name for people like you. He said they possess prophetic consciousness, the ability to sense truths and future patterns before others notice. But this gift comes with responsibility, which we'll revisit at the final sign. Sign 3, you've developed fierce independence as a form of survival. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. You've likely done this not by desire but by necessity. According to Jung, rare personalities often develop individuated consciousness early, usually through challenge or heartbreak. You didn't become independent because you wanted solitude. You became independent because life left you no other option. Your independence isn't a defense mechanism, it's an achievement. But society still labels it a problem. Why? Because true independence makes you uncontrollable. You learned through painful experience that relying on others for worth is emotional quicksand. So you built your own foundation. You became someone who stands alone if needed, not because you're cold, but because you refuse to betray yourself again. Jung called this individuation the process of becoming whole. And here's the paradox. While most seek someone to complete them, you've already done the inner work. You want a partner who stands beside you, not someone leaning on you for identity. But Jung warned that your independence attracts two kinds of people, those inspired by your strength and those threatened by it. Distinguishing between the two is essential, and I'll share Jung's method in sign number 7. Your solitude isn't loneliness, it's sanctuary. It's where you remember who you truly are. Jung believed this kind of self-awareness forms the core of psychological health. Sign 4. You possess intuitive awareness that borders on psychic. This one may sound unusual, but Jung, who coined the term collective unconscious, took intuition extremely seriously. He defined intuition as perception through the unconscious, meaning it gathers information beyond logical senses. Some people's nervous systems are simply tuned to receive data. Others never notice. You feel shifts before they happen. You sense contradictions before they're exposed. You pick up emotional undercurrents like an internal radar. Jung would say you possess active imagination, the ability to detect symbolic and emotional patterns beneath the surface. But here's the danger: without boundaries, intuition becomes a drain. Intuitive individuals often become unconscious therapists, absorbing everyone else's emotions, stabilizing situations, carrying tension. You've likely done this often. The trap, Jung found, is losing yourself in others' emotions. You merge instead of observe. You care until you collapse. Jung taught that intuitive people must learn boundaries, the skill of witnessing without absorbing. When you master this, intuition becomes a superpower, not a burden. Sign 5. You crave meaning more than social acceptance. Here's the 5th sign, and it explains why you often feel out of place. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But for people like you, that means rejecting society's script. You cannot live an inauthentic life. Maybe you followed the rules, pursued traditional goals, but something inside rebelled. That emptiness you felt, Jung would call it a neurotic symptom, the psyche refusing to live a lie. You'd rather be misunderstood for being real than praised for a life that betrays you. Jung believed people like this act as evolutionary catalysts. By refusing shallow living, you force others to confront their own emptiness. But Jung also warned that meaning-driven individuals carry a heavier burden, a sacred responsibility that reveals itself in the final sign. Sign 6. You've outgrown people and environments that once fit. Jung once said, "The greatest tragedy of a family is the unlived lives of the parents." But what happens when you refuse to repeat that tragedy? What happens when you grow beyond the psychological limits of your environment? Jung found that real growth always involves separation, a shedding that feels like loss. He called it psychological death and rebirth. If you've ever looked around and realized the people or places that once felt like home no longer match who you're becoming, you felt this. You're not arrogant, your inner world expanded while theirs stayed the same. People who once understood you now misunderstand your motives. They say you've changed and they're right. You've outgrown the version of yourself they preferred. Jung explained that when you become authentic, you disrupt dynamics built on conformity. The old you was predictable. The real you is evolving, and evolution terrifies people who haven't changed. Jung called this stage the dark night of the soul, a type of existential loneliness. But he also discovered something beautiful. Once you stand in your truth, you attract those who match your depth. He called this psychological resonance, the natural magnetic pull between authentic souls. When you stop shrinking, you begin calling in people who speak your emotional language. If you're grieving old relationships, remember this isn't an ending, it's clearing space. Sign 7. You offer profound presence in a distracted world. Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And if you're one of these rare individuals, you know the truth of that. People change when they're around you." Jung identified a rare ability among certain individuals, the ability to create psychological holding space. When people talk to you, they feel seen. You don't listen to reply, you listen to understand. You tolerate discomfort, complexity, and contradiction. You offer presence in a world addicted to distraction. Jung believed this kind of presence is healing, but here's the danger. People with this gift often give it too freely. Jung observed something he called helper syndrome, sacrificing your own needs to hold everyone else together. You become the counselor, the anchor, the emotional first responder, and slowly you burn out. Jung taught that real compassion requires boundaries. Not everyone deserves your depth. He encouraged people to imagine an inner circle, a symbolic boundary around the heart, and to choose carefully who enters it. Not to reject others, but to protect your energy. When you practice this, your presence transforms from depletion to transformation for both you and others. Sign 8. You sense a larger purpose you cannot yet name. And now we arrive at the final sign, perhaps the most mysterious of all. Jung said, "Your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." If you've ever felt a persistent sense that you're meant for something more, even if you can't explain it, Jung would recognize it. He called it the transcendent function the psyche is pushed toward: purpose, wholeness, and integration. You might feel restless, as if preparing for something invisible. You may sense direction beneath the surface of your life. This isn't delusion. Jung believed it was an archetypal calling, not ambition. Not ego, but the evolution of consciousness itself. Jung found that rare individuals carry fragments of the collective unconscious, insights, gifts, patterns that must be expressed. But he also warned against inflation, mistaking calling for superiority. True individuation isn't about being above others. It's about being in service to something deeper. When you align with this calling, you begin living what Jung called a transpersonal life, where your personal meaning merges with universal significance. Your sensitivity, your intensity, your insight, these were never accidents. They were tools waiting for purpose. The hidden role of rare personalities. Jung believed that people like you, those who feel deeply, think independently, and refuse to live superficially, are the carriers of consciousness. You illuminate what others avoid. You reveal truth through presence, and yes, it's lonely, but Jung saw this loneliness as the beginning of the hero's journey, the isolation that precedes inner transformation. He wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. You are already doing that. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, you help elevate human consciousness. So no, you're not too much. You're finely tuned. You're not too sensitive. You're deeply aware. You're not too intense. You're fully alive. The world isn't too big for you, it's too small, and people like you expand it. Your next step, if these signs resonated, it's not random. Jung believed those who recognize themselves in this description are part of the leading edge of consciousness. Your task isn't to fit in, it's to become, to transform emotional depth into clarity, to turn solitude into creativity, to turn sensitivity into wisdom. When you live authentically, you give others permission to do the same. Take a breath. You're not broken, you're rare. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Drop a comment below and tell me which sign spoke most to you. Share this with someone who needs to remember that their intensity is sacred. And subscribe to Mr. Psycho, because this is just the beginning of understanding what makes you extraordinary. The journey of becoming. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture. If you recognized yourself in these signs, what you're experiencing isn't random. It's the beginning of a psychological and spiritual initiation. Jung devoted his life to understanding what happens when someone stops pretending and starts becoming. That journey, individuation, isn't easy. It's the path walked by the few who refuse to sleepwalk through life. Individuation means stripping away every false identity, every belief that isn't truly yours, every mask used for survival. It means seeing all of yourself, not just the polished parts. The anger, the fear, the longing, the shadow. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That's your work, not to escape your depth, but to understand it. Not to deny your shadow, but to integrate it, because that's where your wholeness lies. The gift beneath the struggle. Living with this awareness isn't easy. There are days your empathy feels overwhelming, days your independence feels isolating, days your intuition feels like too much information. You may have asked, "Why can't I just be normal?" Jung would answer, "Because you weren't designed for half-conscious living. You were meant to feel deeply, to see truth even when it hurts, to carry the torch of awareness into places others fear." But he also taught that these gifts need grounding. Psychological maturity is balance, holding both the mystical and the mundane. Meditate, dream, reflect, but also cook, laugh, call someone you love. The goal isn't to escape humanity, but to embody it fully. When you honor both sides of yourself, your rarity becomes a responsibility, not a burden. The paradox of the rare personality. Jung found that those with deep consciousness must learn to hold contradictions. You are both strong and sensitive, intuitive and analytical, independent and deeply connected. This duality can feel confusing. You may feel caught between worlds, one foot in the tangible, another in the unseen. But Jung believed this tension creates transformation. He called it the transcendent function, the alchemy that turns conflict into growth. So when you feel torn between solitude and connection, idealism and realism, longing and exhaustion, don't see it as failure. See it as evolution. The discomfort means life is expanding inside you. How to honor your rarity. If you want to truly live as the rare individual you are, Jung's teachings point to a few guiding practices. Protect your energy. Not everyone is meant to receive your depth. Embrace solitude. Your alone time is your inner sanctuary. Face your shadow. Your darker emotions carry wisdom. Stay curious. Curiosity keeps consciousness alive. Live symbolically. Life speaks through dreams, symbols, and synchronicity. Serve something larger. Your gifts aren't just for you, they're for the world. The modern world and your rarity. The truth is, the modern world isn't built for people like you. It rewards speed over depth, noise over nuance, appearance over authenticity. But Jung believed cultures depend on their rare individuals, the ones who can see what's missing and bring it to life. Poets, healers, visionaries, deep thinkers. He wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." That's your gift, to see the hidden order beneath the surface. And yes, it's lonely being ahead of your time, but every great thinker, artist, and healer felt the same. You're in good company. Becoming the bridge. Jung believed rare individuals serve as bridges between worlds, the unconscious and the conscious, the past and the future. You carry ancient intuition and modern clarity. When integrated, you become what Jung called the whole person, someone capable of living creatively, symbolically, and compassionately. That's what the world needs now. Not more perfection, more wholeness. Your authenticity becomes a mirror. Your depth becomes permission for others to be real. That is your quiet revolution. The awakening. Jung believed that fully awakened individuals trigger ripple effects. Through their authenticity, they transform families, relationships, communities, not by forcing, but by existing truthfully. He wrote, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you." You are one of the few who refuses to be told. You are choosing to discover. That is awakening. The moment you stop asking for permission to be yourself. Yes, it's frightening, but it's also freedom. When you accept every part of yourself, the sensitivity, the strength, the longing, the fire, you stop battling your own nature. That's when real magic begins. You stop chasing belonging and begin embodying it. You stop searching for meaning and start creating it. You stop wanting to be understood and start understanding yourself. And from that place, everything shifts. The closing reflection. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That's the essence of your journey, not perfection, not approval, but becoming layer by layer, truth by truth, who you were always meant to be. So if anyone ever told you you're too sensitive, too deep, too intense, remember, that's exactly what the world needs more of. Because people like you, emotionally awake, intuitively wise, meaning-driven, move humanity forward. You are the mirror reminding others of their soul. You are the voice dissolving illusion. You are the fire transforming pain into purpose. That is what makes you rare. Final words. If you made it this far, you're not just watching a video, you're walking your path of individuation. Honor it, protect it, share it. And when the world tells you you're too much, just smile and remember the ocean never apologizes for its depth. Drop a comment below and tell me which sign resonated most. Share this with someone still learning that their sensitivity is a strength. And subscribe to Mr. Psycho, because we're just beginning this exploration into consciousness. Remember, you're not too much. The world is too little, and people like you are here to change it.